Welcome back to the Disciplined Troublemakers podcast. I'm your host, Scott Shagory. Here on DT, we talk about scaling tech companies and helping CEOs do this with greater ease and flow. Today, we'll be talking with Robbie Penacastro. He's the founder and CEO of Lead Sales, which was created or founded in 2020. Lead Sales is a CRM and conversational commerce platform that helps businesses generate and manage leads. Their focus is helping small and medium-sized businesses in Latin America manage all their potential sales via social media by centralizing those leads into column chats. Prior to Lead Sales, Robbie was involved in the startup's logistics space in Latin America, and previous to that was employed by Google, focusing on small businesses and scaling their sales. Today we'll be talking with Robbie about the unique challenges and opportunities around scaling SaaS in Latin America. Robbie, thanks for carving out time to chat with us today on the Disciplined Troublemakers podcast, and welcome.
Thank you, Scott. Pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invite. It's good to have a first dive into a English language podcast.
Oh, really? This is the first one. Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll work I'll work diligently to make it exciting. So I guess, obviously there was a bit of an intro there, but there's inevitably a lot more under the hood. So in a few sentences for Lead Sales, what are you guys developing to help your ideal audience solve a key challenge with your secret sauce, with what you guys have done now, which is, from 2020 to now, technically 2025, you guys are, 5 years under the hood. That's a lot of ground that you've been able to cover. What does that look like in terms of what you guys are doing and developing now?
So I tend to say that we're building the future of conversational commerce, which is this industry that, while I was working at Google, I saw the trend of adoption from businesses to do their sales via WhatsApp, which is one of the main communication channels used in Latin America, for doing business. And I see this going beyond just WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, the common ones, but probably in the next few years it's going to be TikTok and X and LinkedIn, because essentially I tend to say that we help businesses do more sales and unlock potential sales that get lost in an infinite inbox list. And the value proposal of Lead Sales is building a Kanban out of your chats. So you can just drag and drop those chats in a organized sales funnel, which is what our customers really like. And I see that potential into the future for building one of the biggest tech companies from Mexico.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense, because I think, particularly for those of us in the U.S., we have multiple devices. I'll use myself as the example. Obviously, I centralize around the Macintosh or Apple platform. I've got an iMac, I have a phone, I have, 2 tablets. But, in most markets, or in many markets around the world, people will only have their mobile device. That's what they literally do for everything.
Right.
And so, I don't think it's a surprise that it would be challenging with a traditional CRM or other set of, basically back-end products or platforms to go ahead and try and what is effectively manage the entire initial engagement, to understanding what that customer wants, to the purchase, to delivery, to all of those other follow-up services, to really be able to manage that is, I would imagine, would be very, very cumbersome. Would that be fair in terms of what you guys as a kind of a background have faced yourselves personally, as well as obviously what everyone else experiences in Latin and South America where you guys have started?
Yeah, I think it's pretty accurate. And also the way of doing business, we tend to say, at least for our markets, that email is dying, and particularly for SMBs, because we see it more and more, and even with AI coming in, businesses are getting faster, even small businesses. And we see also that trend coming into the United States, given that more and more people have been traveling abroad, and once they go out, they see that there's this app called WhatsApp that it's so much better than iMessage, right? And it doesn't have the troubles with the green bubble for iMessage because your friends got Android. So I don't know. I just see it very, very clear that that's where everything is going to be. And I just want to be one of the first moving advantages for us to also go into the US.
Yeah, nice. Could we talk about just for a moment, because when I was doing, background on you or on the company, obviously you mentioned, CRM, but you also mentioned the term or phrase conversational commerce. In terms of how you guys choose to define yourselves, do you think of yourselves as a conversational commerce company, or is it a case where you have a unique CRM that backs that, or how do you talk about the company? Because it's not something that, at least in my experience so far, admittedly focusing on cyber, AI, and some other areas here in the U.S. and in North America, I don't come across that particular phrase too much. So maybe it would be helpful for my audience just to understand how you guys think about that a little bit more, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I specifically took from a really good author called Christopher Lochhead. He wrote this book called Play Bigger, and in there it talks about how pirates, dreamers, and innovators create and dominate markets, and it's just by building categories, right? And yeah, we could say that essentially we are a CRM for WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram and social media, but what we're focusing on and why we call this conversational commerce is that you're essentially chatting, which is completely different than just writing an email, because email is asynchronous, and you're also chatting with these new AI tools, right? With ChatGPT, with DeepSeek, Claude, etc. So I see that is going to become a trend, and even more like training to people to get accustomed to chatting more, and that will just replicate into the way people do business. No, so that's why we're trying to be the first ones to talk about this and just define, no, because we usually tend to say like, hey, are we building things for revenue generation, or are we actually going to build more into the conversations, how we enable those conversations to eventually evolve into a sale? That's the way we think, and it's part of our culture.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a valuable cut of several items to go ahead and list, because it is true, even as an extensive user of, say, I'll just use LinkedIn for example, but Insta and others are very similar in that they are kind of they're certainly not in real time, and you're making a comment, say on something that you might have posted or whatnot, where I might see it fairly quickly, or I might not, and I might respond, etc. But it isn't that free flow of almost like being in the room with someone simultaneously, as opposed to sort of, again, like you say, that asynchronous communication. So yeah, it is a much more, I think, dynamic and then emotionally powerful way to connect to brands, connect to people, to connect to services, products, etc. So that all makes a great deal of sense, particularly as the world in general just gets smaller and smaller and faster and faster. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What does for you guys, because you founded in 2020, you've raised some money, you've obviously grown a great deal. What does scale look like to you and the team right now in, say, 2025 through the year, or the next 18 months or so, as to what you guys are looking to achieve?
Yeah, so we've come a long way. No, we started out in my parents' garage. No, just two crazy guys, and eventually started growing to 15 people, and then I left Google to pursue this full time. And today we're more than 75 people, over 2,700 companies across 20 countries, mainly Latin America. I see this in this year only, we're gonna reach $10 million in annual recurring revenue, which means roughly around 5,000, 10,000 companies depending of how we increase the average revenue per account, which is also a big enabler for us. Yeah. And in the future, I see us conquering beyond just Spanish-speaking countries. The US is the obvious next step because of the Latino economy, but also Asia, India, and South Africa. Even Africa is a heavy user of WhatsApp and other social media channels. So I see this as in a global scale, and that's what really excites me of the potential of what this could become, and the way I see myself, or my vision. My vision is not to create a lifestyle business; it's to create one of the big tech companies, and this is the scale I need to be thinking of worldwide.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and I think if you will, although to say one would follow WhatsApp, given its global footprint, very clear global footprint, would be not quite accurate. I was in South Africa, Joburg in particular, a number of years ago, and it's just always interesting to see how people use mobility or mobile devices in ways that, again, just through the sheer lack of infrastructure or simply leapfrogging, as we've all seen M-Pesa and just other services in Africa more broadly, just literally skipping certain sections here. It's just very, very interesting. So that certainly makes a great deal of sense, and to simply push in those directions. Yeah, no, that makes sense. In terms of how you guys think about, along the same lines or similar lines, how do you guys uncover what I think of as the deep kind of intelligence around the decision superiority that you guys have, or that you've moved earlier than other platforms have done so? You've obviously chosen particular markets driven by, say, WhatsApp penetration, or the ways in which people use it. Is commerce being transacted there significantly, or whatever those measurements might be? With what you're comfortable sharing, obviously, what has that look like for you guys, and what does that look like in, say, the next 12 months?
So for us, I think it's been in our DNA, because the founding history of lead sales comes as the typical cliche. We were not expecting to build out a tech company. We were just solving a family business problem. A family business I started with my brother, a mobile bar catering company for weddings and events, which started growing, had a huge demand, lots of messages through social media and WhatsApp, and we couldn't handle all that demand. So we set out to look for a software back in 2019 that could help us with this. We didn't find any software that could fit the requirements of us as an SMB, and we said, okay, well, let's build something that can fulfill this. And we were lucky enough to be in the wave of digitalization brought by COVID. So if you look backwards, it's kind of that, and that has always stayed true in terms of how we build for our customers. We always hear them, and I'm a big fan of Jeff Bezos, and I have here actually from the last event at AWS reInvent. I don't know if it's backwards, but it's like working backwards philosophy. So we tend to focus a lot in our customers, and that's what I feel gives us a competitive edge. But also, there is deep intel. From myself, I love to read books, and I always like to be 5 steps ahead of what's coming. And I've been talking about this lately, with this fast acceleration in terms of AI. I see there's going to be a quantum leap of how businesses get to the users, and it just debunks the current strategy that we have been using, which is SEO. Right? Blogging and getting yourself into the top ranks of Google as a search engine, that is going to change, and I call it IEO, which is Intelligence Engine Optimization. How do you get recommended by these tools, by ChatGPT and Llama? And when users are talking with this AI, they tend to follow the recommendation that the AI gives you. But how, as a business, you get there, that is the deep intel. And I always share this because in the end, like, the strategies, you can tell them, but it's the execution what it counts, not just the idea.
Indeed.
But I see that as a big trend, and obviously the way I see that probably ChatGPT and all of those are going to start monetizing is just imminent. But at the current moment, that is going to be a good place for us to get known by the upcoming market.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. There's certainly, at least in the conversation circles that I am involved with, lots of conversation about the shift from SEO, and while still very relevant at present, and then how you build, a reputation via AI. Does it, sort of supersede any of the individual LLMs, of which there are literally hundreds of them and new ones get spawned all the time? How do you manage your brand? How do you manage your reputation? What is that communication medium? What is the message or messages? How does that resonate, and how does your audience actually go ahead and find you? And I think it's, both obviously, as always, a risk and an opportunity. There's a huge upside to being able to connect with people in ways you could never connect with them before. And the tools that we use right now are pretty impressive compared with, what I would think would have been, what I was using, say, even 30 years ago, let alone 15. So it does, I think, always get better. As always, it's about how you're communicating, your unique offering and what it is you bring to the marketplace. The communication piece, not just the sheer volume of it, as it's been very easy to create it now with AI tools. It's very much, I think, going to focus around the quality and how that resonates with people or customers, prospects at the other end, because it's what they think you are valuable, or in the ways in which you're valuable. So, always, I think, fascinating. I have a question, though, in terms of where you obviously, where you started. So you were involved with Google and with sales and things like that. To what degree do you have, a technical background where you were going ahead and building, or has that been simultaneous in terms of if you were helping your brother with, catering and your ideal audience were folks having a wedding or other things like that? That is a, not unusual in emerging global growth markets, but it is still a bit of a shift. So had you just, you knew people and knew what not to do, et cetera, like that, as opposed to, because you guys have grown quickly. You were able to raise money quickly. You didn't, as many bootstrappers and accidental entrepreneurs do, they'll kind of just feel their way through. Some of them will share and say fumble around. You obviously haven't had that trajectory, and you obviously were involved in a previous startup focused around logistics. So was most of it already there for you and for your co-founder, or was it a case where you felt, hey, we need to know more about X, Y, and Z, but we know people who can help us and we can spin up more quickly, if you're willing to share that, because I think people will be interested in it.
It's a combination of both. I mean, I tend to say I have it in my blood because my mom was one of the first software engineers back in the day. She worked at HP, learned the HP way, so I kind of grew up with a computer since I have a memory, Never went into programming because also my mom, she started as a programmer, but she really liked more the business side of computers, And then she spun out of HP, put her own company selling IBM products and stuff. But I grew up learning that, So that kind of gave me the experience, firsthand experience of how it is entrepreneurship through my mom, through my dad. And later, and I've always been like this, just avid reader and wanting to learn stuff. So I taught myself how to code, and the basics of good UI, good UX, and how to build quality software. And with those bases, I've never been like building myself something by myself, but I know the basics in order to guide the people with the talent. So I hired some engineers from university and told them my idea, how I wireframed it, and we started building it together. And that's how it came to be. And my partner, David, we worked together. Actually, I was working at his startup. It was his previous startup. So we got to meet there and work together, and we realized that we had the same work ethics, like workaholics, work 24/7, like it's a match. And that's why we really clicked, because he's the best people person I know and the best operations guy in terms of customer support and sales. So I told him, David, you do this, I'll do product and marketing, and we just level up. And it has been also that. And to your point, in terms of like getting to the right people, we've never been ashamed of not knowing things. We actually just go and knock doors, and it's like, hey, I don't know, but maybe you do, no? And we knock doors, and I think that is part of how we got to accelerate so fast, because we knocked on doors, and many said no in the early beginnings, no, until we got a yes. We went to Silicon Valley, and things just start moving as you grind and hustle and keep the persistence. I think it's that combination that we both have as co-founders in order to keep going.
Yeah, no, I think that's always, successful teams always do, I think, two things. They, divide and conquer, figure out what it is that their strengths. Yours is ops. He's obviously got the people stuff. And then to feel very comfortable with that too, that there's not a clash of egos, that the vision is shared, that there's alignment, even with all of the craziness and so forth. And if that alignment is, hey, we stop at 6 p.m. or no, we stop at 12 midnight every day, or whatever that is, everyone gets to choose and figure that out for themselves. And it inevitably shifts too over time if one starts a family or does other things as life gets more complicated. But I think, being able to do that, and to do that very early on, most startups, most, companies that merge, even the big ones, they break down over, a fellow CEO's ego, or it's something else there that just causes something to just absolutely implode or blow up. And so I think to have those ingredients in place, you can just adapt and shift in ways that other companies, even with better quote unquote resources, just simply can't.
It's never about the money. If I've learned something, it's never problems that get solved by millions of dollars.
Yeah, no, that's and I think a very meaningful reminder that the money is just a tool, and that if you don't know what the end game is, either starting backwards, or to borrow Steve Jobs' quote, always start with your customer and then effectively move backwards, or move into the technology, move into other things from there. You're just going to struggle in ways that is very difficult to get around, which is great. Well, let's go ahead and take a short break, and then we will be right back. Purple Finch Group helps technology CEOs innovating at the edge of chaos create operational fitness across their technology stack and team of talent. Achieving significant and measurable scale, selling your story, and finding time to think and plan can feel like a bridge too far. So if you're a CEO whose company has found product market fit, but is struggling, or you're a CEO whose company is looking to accelerate existing momentum, we can help with proven blueprints for optimal scale. Shifting from incremental addition to exponential multiplication can be absolutely achieved with less effort and stress. To get in touch, I can be reached at Scott with 2 T's at purplefinchgroup.com. Now, back to the interview. Well, we are back with Robbie from Lead Sales. Shifting gears slightly, I always like to ask a founder and a CEO, what types of work that you do now gives you the most joy and energy? Because sometimes, either we call it the grind, we call it, any number of things can be, both stressful and then just consume you in a way that's challenging. And so I always like to focus a little bit on the joy and energy side of things. So again, with what you're comfortable sharing, what type of work does that get you really excited here and now?
Recently, it's been brainstorming around the potential innovation that we could create using AI. I think that is one of the most exciting times that we're living right now, and that you just unlock a lot of things, particularly us, because we process millions of messages every single day. So we have the data to actually make something if we implement AI. I think that is the most exciting right now. But also I really enjoy helping other founders. Right now we are trying to bring the Silicon Valley mindset into our community, because it's something that not many people have access, no? And we try to bring them these ideas and show that it's possible to build in tech, no? And kind of guide them a little bit. I really like that part, that I make myself time to get energy, you know, to do the hard work, no, that is required to solving problems and stuff. I need that decompression, which is, people will say, well, but you're still working. Yeah, but I like it, no? It gives me energy. I think that is also part that I really enjoy.
Yeah, no, I think, it's one of the reasons why I started this podcast. I enjoy talking with people, and I like sharing ideas and learning, back and forth. As a bit of a follow-up, I think, just so the audience understands either the Latin American market or the development kind of startup space, startup space, or maybe it's, Mexico or where you are, I believe outside of Mexico City. When you say that there's not that, is it a lack of, either awareness or tools relative to sort of we'll call it the Silicon Valley way, or is it just simply a lack of understanding in some other area to kind of, flesh that out a little bit more so even I understand it a bit better?
It's a little bit of both, no? In terms of the Silicon Valley way, is how do you build a business that has the potential to scale, no? And think bigger, basically. Like most founders in this region think locally, no? Or regionally, instead of thinking nationally or even globally, no? So we try to help them on that. But also in terms of technology, we bring them these kind of ideas like, hey, you don't need to go out physically knock on doors. Maybe if I could teach you how to use Facebook ads, Google ads, or even start your own blog and help you bring that traffic into your website, then you can organically start, or with just a really small investment. So, and it helps and it serves our purpose, because we've seen that for our ICP, no, the SMBs that are already bringing a demand, they end up becoming the best type of customers for us. So I see it also as planting the seeds, no, helping other entrepreneurs, not only startup entrepreneurs in the tech industry, but also normal SMBs, no, restaurants, hotels, doctors, pretty much anyone who has a consultative way of selling could be a customer of lead sales, no? So I like that part of teaching them and unlocking them, because for people who are in tech, maybe some of these things seem obvious, but they're quite new for smaller businesses or businesses that are not that tech savvy. And I find that the same in the US. It's not oblivious to the US. There's also people who don't know how to use Google ads, Facebook ads, or even measuring tools, no? So that is essentially how I see it.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. It's nice that you mentioned, because I didn't ask it earlier, around, who is your ideal or set of ideal, customers and things like that. And it is true, there are lots and lots of people who have, significant, not just experience, but, expertise in areas, like you say, someone who's providing some sort of consult-like set of services and things like that, where they've got, but they don't know how to really share that story, or it's not about, it's communication and messaging, of course, but they have this implicit genius, but they haven't actually organized it into a structured genius that someone else could then, really kind of understand and go, now I see the value that Robbie and his brother have, or whatever that might be, that their false assumptions are often the biggest barrier to understanding how to unlock that. And as you've been doing both with your customers at lead sales and the startup and ecosystem that you've got, is to go ahead and create some insights and paradigm shifts for people who didn't have that before, and go, okay, now that I see where it could be that much bigger or that much more significant, or we could change or grow in these particular ways. Yeah. Exactly. Is that fair?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, and that seems fair. Along the same lines, in terms of the joy and energy piece, is obviously stuff you're doing now. Do you find that it's looking forward out over the next 18 months with the growth that you anticipate, we'll be gunning for that. The same joy and energy is there as well to continue doing the same sorts of things that you have been doing today over the next 18 months, that you'll be able to balance both of those, or do you think that'll shift a little bit for you at all?
It shifts, no, because if it's always like that. If you want to have a bigger impact, then you need to know how to scale it, no? So kind of that we tried to create, instead of like physical spaces, like virtual spaces like this, or just making a webinar, no? So you can reach more people that probably are not even in the same place as you. I think that is going to shift. The responsibility, of course, because, and that is where I'm currently enjoying learning the process of becoming a leader of a team that will soon outsize the 100 mark, no? And how you start leading through your leaders. That for me has been interesting journey, exactly, because I don't have the experience, no, and that's also part of the journey, because sometimes people have second time founder experience. This is my first tech startup, you know, and I'm just learning by doing and talking to people and asking questions, asking for help, you know, and reading good books. But that, it's a challenge, but I also like that part of how can I do better? How can I improve myself? How can I take myself to the next level in terms of leading? Because it shifts, no? And some people, well, I've been in the same place, but I think I've been working on that, of like letting go of operating yourself, doing things yourself, and enabling others to actually perform that. That is a big shift.
Yeah, I'm smiling only because I've had this conversation in one way or the other, where it's a huge challenge. It's a wonderful opportunity, but it requires a very different set of skills to be able to then essentially hand over responsibility, but then be leading that particular leader in ops or in sales or in marketing, or whichever ones you end up creating first, to then, hand off the dossier, so to speak, as I sometimes like to say, and then really let someone run with that in ways that you might not have done, or in some areas not be as strong as you are. And that's okay, and what does that look like, and where is that, comfort zone? It's a very challenging place to be. I help CEOs with scaling their companies, and many are awesome, particularly in cyber, where there's just so much technical dominance to be had there. AI is, and I think is and will continue to be, another example where, again, you've got a circumstance where the founder's awesome at going from 0 to 1, whatever one ends up happening to be, and then they get stuck. And is the stuck based on an inability to scale, understanding what the next leap is for themselves or the team, or where that needs to come from? And so, yeah, it's just a very, I think, complex set of questions to ask. And it is, at its core, in my view, very much for that founder or CEO to know thyself well enough, and be able to, reach out and ask, as you've shared, go ahead and essentially say, I don't know what the answer is here. Who do I know that can at least start to point me in the general direction, as opposed to getting very, pull back and get very tight about the whole process and think I cannot fail, and or have that sort of mindset around those sorts of things. So yeah, a big shift to be sure, but absolutely a massive opportunity upside for those who would don't only just have the ability to adapt, but actually look forward to that opportunity as well, to grow as a person, grow as the founder and CEO, to grow with somebody else, and then be able to share that story with others, which you're already doing at the level that you're at, which is just, I think, very, very powerful.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. In terms of, and this kind of leads into this kind of last question here, to date, with your journey to date as a first-time founder and CEO, what as CEO do you think has transformed you the most? Or if there's more than one, a couple of things. What has shifted for you the most since you founded the company, Lead Sales in 2020 to here in early 2025?
I tend to talk about lead sales on different eras, right? The era where we were literally in the golden days of doing lead sales in my parents' garage, no, during COVID, and just talking with the team. Hey, did you went out this weekend? We don't want to get COVID, like all of those things. I think every era has been transformative. For me, the most transformative has been the inflection points when things. I don't know if you experience the same, Scott, but it's usually when you feel that everything is just going to blow out, no? The moment of pain that eventually you suddenly find just a way or an answer pops in and you are able to tackle the challenge, no? There has been a lot of moments like that at lead sales, like from the moment like we were running bootstrap, as you mentioned, and we were running out of money because we forgot to see how the infra costs were going to scale with more usage, and we were paying loads and loads of money, and we were running out of the credits that we had from our cloud services, no? And we were thinking we're doomed, like it's over, no? And out of nothing, we end up pitching for an accelerator at Skydeck, and we got in, like it's those moments that have changed me to always think back, and it's like, hey, this is a challenge, but we've been also in this and this other challenge. I think those have been the most transformative, and also the very low ones when it's comes to a tough decision of letting go the team that helped you in the beginning to move on to the next stage. No, that also comes in. That came when I hired our CTO with more experience. He came in. I had in my mind a list maybe of 3 people that I knew that we couldn't move forward with, but he came with a list of 10 people. Like these 10 people, they're not going to take us to the next level, and I had to let go of that, which is, I think, the most hard as a CEO, because you tend in the beginning to take care of everyone, and it's hard. It's hard to take those tough decisions, and it's the decisions you need to take as a CEO, because if not, you're limiting your company's growth.
Yeah, no, I think the second one is particularly poignant, where particularly in the beginning, people have worked, tirelessly in some cases, obviously with no financial compensation. There's been enormous emotional compensation or commitment and a real feeling, of camaraderie. But it is true that, in the end, people do need to be able to grow and to be able to see that growth and to understand what it is that they're great at. Are they great at being a CTO of a company that does 5 million, but maybe not 15, or whatever those markers happen to be? It just can be a really, I think, challenging decision to go ahead and need to then know in your role that someone needs to go ahead. We need to move in a different direction with certain people in order for us to be able to scale and then serve everyone else, serve the team well, serve customers in a way that will allow us to not just grow, but serve them at a very high standard with the vision that you and your co-founder have. And it's, I think, one of the toughest decisions that makes, because nobody feels good about it whatsoever, but it's a necessary part of the journey. And I think, to your point around the growth that comes, with that. And I think there are cultural aspects to it as well, where at least here in the States, we do have, I think, circumstances where that is, I won't say easier to do, but it is something where we are not unfamiliar with that. I wonder, does that impact itself with the way that relationships in Latin America and maybe even Mexico in particular, the value and the sense of, if you will, family, if that term is used a great deal, does that add a level of complexity to it, or is that not the case with the markets that you're in and the talent that you have cultivated and will need to cultivate going forward?
It does and especially building a startup outside of the US, you need to leverage by making a better place to work, no? And because you probably don't have enough to pay as good salary as a US company, no? Or a more old company, no, with more capital. Mm-hmm. I think that makes you closer at the very beginning, no, mm-hmm. with your collaborators. There's also you mentioned it, not the difference between the flexibility in the US. It's kind of easier because also at least in Mexico, when you lay off someone, the laws are much more in favor of the collaborator. Mm-hmm. Whereas I feel that in the US is the other way around. There's never a good mix, and it's like a sensitive topic, no? But if you see it from the perspective of a business, no? Also, like businesses in Mexico, it's not as easy to lay off people because it not only comes a question of performance, but also a financial mm-hmm. question, no? Because it costs much more money to lay off someone than maybe put them in a PIP, performance improvement plan, to get better results, no? But that also could still cost you the same money because you're giving up the time to see if things get better.
Yeah, I mean, it always is. It's that there is no golden answer. It's a set of trade-offs as to what that is and what that looks like. What is the upside? What is the downside? How is it going to impact the culture of the organization? My leadership style, what that means to me? How close was I to that particular person or that particular team? Yeah, it's just not one size fits all, and it's just I think one of the more challenging. Particularly for leaders like yourself, definitely one of the more challenging things to try and work through, and what that means to you too, as a leader and then as a person. So, no, always insightful, which I definitely appreciate. As we go ahead and close out here, how would you like people to go ahead and reach out to you? Would that be via the company website or maybe LinkedIn? What would be the best way of when they come across and listen to this, either to reach out, either connect, or have questions about the services that Lead Sales has? What would work best for you?
The best way, LinkedIn. I think that's where I'm most active, and I love to write, and now I love that I can reach even a bigger audience because the guys at LinkedIn now translate the posts automatically for those who follow me, because I mainly post in Spanish, no? Mm-hmm. But now people can read my posts because they're auto-translated for them. So yeah, LinkedIn is the best place to reach me, and just shoot me up a DM, and I'm always open and I always have time.
Cool. No, that's great. As a heavy LinkedIn user myself, I would agree. There are some really fantastic things about the platform as they continue to grow it out and stuff like that. And as I've connected with more people like yourself and elsewhere in the world, those translations are fantastic and really very accurate as well. And to be able to communicate in ways that we wouldn't have been able to do even, I think, a couple of years ago as easy or as fluidly as we can now. Well, cool. Well, Robbie, thank you very much for sharing and carving out some time to talk with us today on the Disciplined Troublemakers. It's always great to just hear stories around what somebody is doing and uniquely in a particular market. Obviously, this is Latin America, and to just be able to share is great, because I think our global community is a pretty small one, despite its size, and to just see how other people are doing things, I think, is a great way to learn and then just be better positioned in one's own companies to move forward.
Thank you, Scott. Pleasure to be here, and hope we can meet soon with more news from Lead Sales in a bigger level.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And for all of you out there, we'll be back with another episode of the Disciplined Troublemakers podcast very soon. Cheers. Thank you for tuning into the Disciplined Troublemakers podcast, and we hope you found the episode valuable. If you did, please subscribe to the Disciplined Troublemakers podcast on your favorite platform and leave a review. Putting this podcast together is a group effort, so I'd like to provide a shout out to Heartcast Media and their team for all of the assistance they provide with each episode. If If you want to get in touch with me directly, I can be reached at Scott with 2 T's at purplefinchgroup.com. Purple Finch Group is the sponsor of this podcast. We have another podcast episode out very shortly. Stay tuned.